Hello and welcome to the Times of India. You're watching Global Pulse with me, Neha Khanna. From an India Out campaign to a red carpet welcome for Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the India-Maldives relations have had quite an arc in recent years. It's most certainly a welcome reset in ties beneficial to both countries. Prime Minister Narendra Modi landed in Male today and received a grand and warm reception at the airport by Maldivian President Mohamed Muizzu, along with the country's senior cabinet members, including the Foreign Minister, Defence Minister, Finance Minister and the Minister of Homeland Security. While this is Prime Minister Modi's third trip to the Maldives as Prime Minister, significantly it is the first visit to the island nation by any foreign head of state or government since Muizzu was elected as president in late 2023. At the invitation of President Muizzu, Prime Minister Modi will attend the Maldives' 60th Independence Day celebrations on Saturday as the guest of honour. On day one of the two-day visit, Prime Minister Modi held wide-ranging discussions with President Muizzu and took stock of the implementation of the India-Maldives joint vision for a comprehensive economic and maritime security partnership, which was adopted during the state visit of the Maldivian President to India in October last year. Prime Minister Modi inaugurated several development projects today supported by India across the archipelago. India has extended a line of credit worth 4,850 crore rupees to the Maldives. The two leaders also signed several memorandums of understanding aimed at further regional integration. This visit is being seen as a dramatic shift and turning point for relations between New Delhi and Male, following tensions that had marred the relationship during the early part of Muizzu's tenure. So how did this turnaround happen? Why were ties between the two countries fraught for the last couple of years? Let's take you back to 2023, when Mohamed Muizzu swept to power in the Maldives on the back of an India Out campaign. The populist and explicitly anti-India campaign was aimed at dislodging India from the important strategic role it had been playing in the island nation. The campaign set alarm bells ringing in New Delhi, and the fears were not unfounded, as bilateral ties nosedived and suffered serious setbacks. The defeat of pro-India President Ibrahim Solih in that election intensified concerns that the Maldives, historically a close ally, was pivoting away from New Delhi and tilting towards China. Muizzu is widely believed to have acted under the influence of China. He broke with tradition by visiting China before India. He demanded the removal of Indian troops from the Maldives, publicly accused India of being a bully, and allowed derogatory remarks against Prime Minister Modi by Maldivian ministers to go unchallenged. The personal attacks on Prime Minister Modi on social media triggered an enormous Indian backlash and even calls to boycott Maldivian tourism. Meanwhile, China seized the opportunity, extending loans, initiating new infrastructure ventures, and showcasing Muizzu in Beijing as a strategic ally. But India did not bite the bait. It did not allow the historical ties to get ruptured. Instead, it chose a policy that experts have described as strategic restraint and pulled the relationship back from the brink. Prime Minister Modi was the first world leader to congratulate Muizzu on his election win. And now, Muizzu is rolling out the red carpet for the Indian Prime Minister. Observers say it's evident that shrill political rhetoric catering to a domestic audience has now made way for diplomatic pragmatism. But this isn't just diplomacy. It's been backed by development and decades of support. India's consistent aid to Maldives during a time of economic distress laid the groundwork for this diplomatic turnaround. In 2024, New Delhi extended a $400 million emergency financial package and a 3,000 crore rupee currency swap to stabilize Maldives' economy. A new 30 billion rupee line of credit was approved, and investments worth over $450 million have been pouring into infrastructure, trade, education, water and sanitation in the island nation. President Muizzu, who visited New Delhi last October, was compelled to acknowledge India's role. He said India is a key partner in the socio-economic and infrastructure development of the Maldives and has stood by the country during our times of need. India is currently engaged in multiple infrastructure projects in the Maldives. Among the flagship projects is the Greater Malay Connectivity Project, linking several islands and boosting economic mobility. Maldives and India are expected to further deepen defense and maritime cooperation across the Arabian Sea and the Indian Ocean through naval collaboration and intelligence sharing. The timing of Prime Minister Modi's visit is also high on symbolism, as it commemorates both 60 years of Maldivian independence and 6 decades of diplomatic ties with India. Foreign policy analysts say by inviting Prime Minister Modi as guest of honour, the island nation has sent a clear signal that despite the turbulence of recent years, India remains a trusted partner. India's prompt military assistance during the 1988 coup attempt in the Maldives built enduring trust. The swift withdrawal of Indian troops last year helped assure the Maldives that India respected its sovereignty, thereby reinforcing India's image as a reliable partner. Over decades, India's assistance to the Maldives has come in the form of medical missions, training, infrastructure and emergency relief. India is one of the Maldives' largest trading partners, a major source of tourists and a key provider of concessional credit and development aid. New Delhi says Prime Minister Modi's visit highlights India's continued commitment to its neighbourhood-first policy and the broader strategic framework of Vision Mahasagar aimed at fostering regional cooperation and security in the Indian Ocean. The Maldives holds strategic value for India in the Indian Ocean region due to its location along vital international sea lanes, and it also plays a key role in India's maritime security framework. The question we're asking on Global Pulse tonight is this: from India out to a red carpet welcome, have relations between India and the Maldives now completely stabilized? Or does China continue to cast a long shadow on this relationship? Is Muizzu's change of heart driven by a realization of the importance of the strategic ties or mere pragmatism? Can New Delhi trust Muizzu? And what is the way ahead for the India-Maldives partnership in a region where China continues to pursue an expansionist policy?
भारत मालदीव का सबसे करीबी पड़ोसी है। मालदीव भारत की नेबरहुड फर्स्ट पॉलिसी और महासागर विजन दोनों में एक अहम स्थान रखता है। भारत को मालदीव का सबसे भरोसेमंद मित्र होने पर भी गर्व है। आपदा हो या महामारी, भारत हमेशा फर्स्ट रिस्पॉन्डर बनकर साथ खड़ा रहा है। एसेंशियल कमोडिटीज उपलब्ध कराने की बात हो या कोविड के बाद अर्थव्यवस्था को संभालना, भारत ने हमेशा साथ मिलकर काम किया है।
I'm also pleased to announce the initiation of negotiations for a free trade agreement between India and the Maldives. The Landmark Initiative marks a significant step forward in strengthening our economic partnership. We appreciate the pivotal role played by India in supporting the Maldives to manage economic and liquidity challenges through $400 million currency swap facility and interest-free one-year rollover of the Treasury bill in May 2025. India's continued assistance to the Maldives through the export of essential commodities is a key facet of our bilateral cooperation under the long-standing trade agreement. Today we inaugurated a key project funded under the India's line of credit assistance, Adu Roads project.
All right. To understand how significant this visit is, we are now joined by a special panel on Global Pulse tonight. We have with us Ahmed Adib, former Vice President of the Maldives, joining us live. Thanks very much, Mr. Adib, for joining us here on Global Pulse. We also have with us Ambassador Shashank, former Foreign Secretary of India. A very warm welcome to both my guests. Mr. Ahmed Adib, if I could begin with you. You know, just 2 years ago, the president of the Maldives ran an India Out campaign. There seemed to be a lot of hostility towards India. He openly called India a bully. Many of his ministers insulted Prime Minister Modi on the social media. Today, you have President Muizzu rolling out the red carpet for Prime Minister Modi, who's in fact been invited as a guest of honor on the occasion of Maldives' 60th Independence Day. In your assessment, what's changed?
First of all, thank you very much for having me. So I was a regular commentator on India-Maldives relationship, especially last year when there was a diplomatic crisis after comments from some ministers of Maldives. So even at that time, I stated that this India Out campaign was initiated by the former President Yamin, who couldn't contest last elections, and with the relationship of the previous government with India, he started this hate campaign against India, and which was inherited by the current new president of Maldives. But the former President Yamin and President Muizzu had a fallout. He inherited it, and he took it for the parliament elections. But after that, I predicted, with the experience of President Muizzu with other countries, he himself has realized that that it's India that has been all this out there for us, goes beyond the way of diplomatic ties, and been there for the last 1.5 years. And with his own experience, I believe that things really changed. And I would say we had to give a lot of credit for India, because India was very patient, very matured, handled very well the situation, and it made it turn around, I would say. And President Muizzu has realized it. He has become more independent. He has the majority of the parliament. He has the majority in his party. So I would say now he's been able to decide on his own the current policies, especially the foreign policy. So I would say it's going in right direction with the experience and with these differences, I think. And also Maldives is facing many challenges on the financial debt, and also there was a very big loss of tourism after the clashes with India. So within all, say, there is a genuine work done from Maldives side. I believe that that's the result why Prime Minister Modi's visit is there. It's a great milestone achievement for Maldives and for both countries, and it's an honor to have Prime Minister Modi in Maldives for the celebration of our Independence Day. Thank you.
Well, it's certainly heartening to hear you say that, Mr. Adib. Also gracious of you to acknowledge that India has been a very patient and reliable ally. In fact, when President Muizzu visited India in October last year, he said, and I quote, "India is a key partner in the socio-economic and infrastructure development of the Maldives and has stood by the Maldives during our times of need." Ambassador Shashank, let me come to you now. So how significant is this visit in your assessment? As I said, from having been insulted by some of Muizzu's ministers in the past to now being fated as the guest of honor on the occasion of the Maldives' 60th Independence Day. Of course, it's quite an honor that's been bestowed on Prime Minister Modi. But what do you think brought about this change of heart as far as President Muizzu is concerned? Would you agree with Ahmed Adib and others who say that it was essentially India exhibiting strategic restraint and proving itself to be a reliable partner, especially during the Maldives' difficult times, that in a sense turned the tide for this relationship?
Yes, I agree with you and with Vice President Ahmed Adib that India did not react immediately, though there was a public perception very strongly against what was being done to the Indian leadership and the statements made coming from the Maldivian side. But I must say that this is the very special thing about Prime Minister Narendra Modi. You remember that he was rejected, his visa was rejected, though he never applied for it. but he was told that he cannot enter the United States of America. And then he tried to become a good friend of the United States. And now, of course, we are still having some challenges, but that is a different matter. So the point is that he does not take these things personally because he feels that the country's interests are far superior to personal insults or personal statements which may have been made, at decisions which may have been taken for one reason or the other. I mean, in the USA, I think there were people who were really various NGOs which were mounting a campaign against his entry into US. And here again, I think there was, as Vice President Adib has said, that in Maldives there were internal uh, issues which really made it impossible for President Muizzu to take any other line but at that time to go along with the India out or Indian military out campaign. I think now Prime Minister Modi has shown and President Muizzu has shown that we want to build up the relations for the future. And it's extremely important. And I think both Maldives and India have seen that what is going on in the world, it's extremely important that the neighbors and friends, they must come together to ensure that their economies and financial uh, prospects are not hurt in any way. Secondly, the trade relations, we have bilateral trade agreements with various countries, recently with the United Kingdom. And UK itself announced, the Prime Minister announced, Keith Starmer, that this is the largest agreement, important agreement that UK has reached with any country after the exit from the European Union. So I think these are the things which people are seeing. They are also, I think, Maldives has had personal relation. There's impact that when they were in serious trouble, they found that it was only India which had been maintaining the same position that yes, we are your partners for development, and we don't want to go about saying that all right, now if cannot pay, you give us some islands or give us some ports which we will control. No, this has not been done. I think that example which has happened in many other countries in Africa and Asia, I think is very well known now by now to people, and they have also seen. I mean, there was a time when Maldives felt that if they could be friends with China on one hand, and they could also have Islamic state support, then they might be able to carry out a very important and unique position in the world. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen like this. So I think what is happening is that they have come to realize that what India had been doing, Maldives had been doing for a very long time to build up relations, we need to carry that process onwards and to further strengthen our trade relations, economic relations, investments, and also if we can have more and more tie-ups for the flight connections and other connections between India and Maldives, then tourism, which became very susceptible to these feelings which were aroused in India because of the statements by Maldivian leaders against Indian leaders. I think that is now perhaps hopefully that's a past chapter. And India withdrew immediately when they found that Maldives was very sensitive about the defense cooperation with India. So India said, okay, we will take our time. Perhaps by and by you will realize that there is importance in that also. So I think now we are going for maritime cooperation, defense cooperation also, but we'll see how it proceeds. I think I'm very hopeful that both President Moizu and Prime Minister Modi would be able to steer the relationship very carefully in a very positive direction.
In fact, another important development has been the fact that the two leaders announced that negotiations for a free trade agreement between India and the Maldives have begun today, with the two leaders of the country holding delegation level talks in Malé. Let me go back to Vice President Adib at this point. Mr. Adib, you mentioned earlier that, the India Out campaign is something that President Muizzu had inherited, in a sense, from his predecessor. But, one significant concern that New Delhi had was that even as he adopted this anti-India policy, he was seen as being quite explicitly pro-China. He even broke with tradition and chose to visit China before coming to India. Therefore, the question I want to ask you is, do you believe that the Maldives is now conducting its relationship with India completely independently of China? Because the concern has been that an expansionist China perhaps continues to cast a shadow on this very important bilateral relationship between India and the Maldives. How do you see the China factor in all of this?
Yeah. As Ambassador Shashank very well stated that this is between Maldives and India. It has been going on for years. It's a long-term relationships. With India goes out of the way to help Maldives, but it doesn't just happen with other countries, as we have seen the case of Sri Lanka. So while this government was just they came very fresh, even their ministers who are also my colleagues, they tried, as just ambassador mentioned, try a new way to go about. But with their experience, they learned that with the current situation, the financial situation of Maldives, they tried everywhere, but they seem only India been helping us out of the way. And I believe I believe they have realized that with with the foreign policy of India first policy, and because as strategic partner, and then they can balance other countries, which most of the small states are doing, even if you see globally. So I believe now they have turned around. They have corrected the course, and I believe with they are doing this as independent from China, I would say, because I believe nothing happened, nothing materialized. There was state visit, but I believe in these kind of situations, it is not easy to find budget supports, currency swaps, infrastructure, credit lines when your own debt is more than, like, debt to GDP is more than 100%. So likewise, I believe that the current government, president, and everyone has realized that it's time to correct the course and go forward. I believe they're going with India sincerely, and I really believe they will commit to everything and also go forward in independent of any other country, because we are more close proximity, we are neighbors, we are destined to be together. So there's no different that any satellite or any country far away can influences us, and also together we can secure the harmony and security of the Indian Ocean. And I would say Maldives should join, be a strategic partner in Mahasagar, the policy of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, which has initiated, which includes all these developments which we are already doing. So I believe that this is the time for Maldives to join strongly with that and go forward.
Interesting. You're saying no other country really can come in the way of or undermine this historically important relationship. That's why we've seen a course correction. But of course, China did seem to come in the way for a while. Let me take this back to Ambassador Shashank. Ambassador Shashank, yes, there's been a much needed course correction, a reset of ties, which has been welcome, certainly, by both sides. But while India out may be a thing of the past, do you believe it really is going to be India first once again for the Maldives under President Muizzu? Some might ask the question, can India trust President Muizzu given his tilt towards China in the past? And I'd like you to, in fact, expand on that as well, the China factor, the expansionism and hegemony of this difficult neighbor that has been a thorn in New Delhi's side. Ambassador Shashank.
The point remains that China wants to become number one in the world. their interest is not becoming number one in South Asia. That they feel that gradually they will become in any case. So therefore, they don't have the same viewpoint which countries like Pakistan, Nepal, Sri Lanka for some time, Maldives for some time, now Bangladesh, they have been trying to play one against the other. They say, okay, if we can play India and China against each other, then we would be in the best position. Now, China is not interested in that. India is also not interested in having relationships on that basis. And therefore, gradually, what India is trying to tell them that we want to be reliable, long-term development partners. We want to go on the basis of your own priorities to set up this thing, so long as India's security interests are not hurt by actions which you take in the region. That is the only thing. In the case of China, they want to become number one in the world, and they are on their very much on their way to achieve that target. The Americans are going to go against that philosophy of China, and they will do everything possible to ensure that China does not overtake the United States. Now, what has happened in the meantime is that it's a different matter that India has also started growing quite rapidly and has overtaken UK and Japan and become number fourth economic power. We had not anticipated that. And therefore, what has happened is that all these countries and USA, they are not only concerned about China, they are also concerned about India. They say, look, India very much looks like us. It's a democracy. It is a very humanitarian kind of a government. And therefore, what our people would like, they would like to have an India type of a situation. And therefore, they remain very worried that the people in all these countries, which are gradually losing or having a declining profile on the economy, they feel that it's not only China, which will definitely take as number one, but India will have, because of its very uh, nice profile as a democratic country and as a country which really goes along with everybody and have a very good relationship among different communities within its borders. And they are not really, they are thinking of welfare of everyone. So therefore, these are the kind of things which have created some difficulties in our understanding in the world. But I think it's important that countries like Maldives and other neighbors, they must realize that what is in their interest. Are they trying to, this game of playing one against the other will never work out very nicely. But we cannot do much about it. It's also part of the domestic compulsion. And in case President Moisu feels that there are various forces within the country which are trying to destabilize him on this account, that he is becoming very friendly with India, as happened with Sheikh Hasina in Bangladesh, then there could be problem for him. So therefore, we want to give him sufficient leeway to decide what he wants to do, so long as he improves relations with India, India becomes a reliable, valuable development partner, and also partner for maritime security and for long-term economic growth. But we don't want them to follow what we dictate to them. As far as China is concerned, it's for China and Maldives to decide how they want to run their bilateral relations.
Okay. You made that interesting point about Bangladesh and former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. If the idea on part of President Muizzu was to assert his country's sovereignty and independence when he asked India to withdraw its military troops from the archipelago, I think it would be safe to say that India has exhibited that it respects the Maldives sovereignty. It promptly, sort of complied with that request of the Muizzu government and has shown itself to be a reliable partner. But let me take this back to Vice President Adib. Mr. Adib, yes, we have seen a course correction, but concerns still remain. Ambassador Shashank makes a very interesting point that China has bigger ambitions. It wants to be the number one power in the world, not just in the region. It wants to be the leader of the global north, not the leader of the global south. But, expansionism displayed by China continues to be a concern for all players in the Indian Ocean region, including India. so the point really is there were a lot of fears that a country like the Maldives could end up as a satellite of China. Do you believe that now the Maldives is in a situation where it has effectively prevented that and also decided that its relationship with India is important and is going to be independent of whatever it may share with China?
As Ambassador Shashank just mentioned, Chinese they have their way of development and also their influence all over the world, and as well as they have been the second largest economy, and now India has taken the fourth largest economy of the world. So what we see is global. There will be geopolitics everywhere. So as a small country, a strategically located country in the Indian Ocean, we have to decide better. So I would always advocate for India first policy, where we have our own strategic relationships, the history. There have been never been an expansionist policy by India, never seen in anywhere in the world. So we have a trusted ally, and with that we can balance it out. When we, especially, we are a touristic nation, where we earn everything from tourism, and then diversification is there. But what I see is that there's no room for strategic playouts. As rightly Ambassador Shashank mentioned, there's no room to play against each other because these are two big players for us. We are a small nation, and we are 500,000 people maximum, our population. And we have beautiful islands, we are strategically located. And uh,
Okay, we have a bit of a trouble there
of
with
the world,
Mr.
many
Adeep's line.
countries.
Okay, he's back now. So you're right. Both of you, of course, are right that playing one against another really is not a good idea in today's complex geopolitics. But let me go back to Ambassador Shashank. Ambassador Shashank, two questions for you. Number one, how do you think India and the Maldives can strengthen their strategic partnership and especially maritime cooperation in the Indian Ocean region, given how important it is for both countries, especially for India's security? Also, while we talk about the threat posed by an expansionist China, just a few days ago, External Affairs Minister Jaishankar was in Beijing and he met with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Many saw that as an important tie in otherwise frosty India-China ties. I wonder what you made of that.
Okay, so you had a second question also, but anyway, let me answer this. That China also is trying to readjust its position with reference to the American tariff imposition on all countries, friends or foes. And therefore, every country is trying to build up bilateral trade relations with other countries with whom they have large trade balances, adverse or favorable. Because I think it's important that China also does not come. China has suffered in the sense that Americans stopped supplying to them under the CHIPS Act. They said they will not share any high technology items with them. So Chinese responded. They said, okay, we will not buy any of your meat products or food grains, corn, etc., and also will not supply you any rare earth minerals and magnets and all that. And so I think now America, so that is a bilateral relationship between America and China, where they have to sort it out. But what is happening is that China has come to a conclusion that whichever party is in power in the United States, the Democrats or Republicans, China would be treated as an adversary. And that they are very clear in their mind. And therefore, while 4 or 5 years ago, they were trying to create a situation against India in order to see whether they could play the same role as America and UK had been playing for a very long time, to treat India and Pakistan against each other and sell the weaponry to both sides. So Chinese thought that they would be able to do something like this, help Pakistan to a great extent, give them all kinds of weaponry, and at the same time trying to push India in a corner. Now, India has hit back, and India say that, okay, we will not tolerate. They think previous understandings was that we would sort out our relations by mutual accommodation, mutual understanding. Now you don't want it, so we will also go on the basis of what you say. I think what the Trump administration has done, I think it has changed so many things all over the world. For example, now you have seen the India-UK trade relations agreement, and you have seen the Russian foreign minister suggesting that we should once again try to go resuscitate RIC, that is Russia, India, China relationship, which had gone into a cold storage after the Galwan clash between India and China. So I think these are the new things which have happened, and India is quite prepared for it because the trend towards multipolarity is ongoing. Nobody can stop it. And therefore, for USA to feel that if they can somehow block any investment in India or any investment in China, they would be able to control the rise of both these countries. I think that is perhaps unlikely. And therefore, all the other countries have to then carry out their own calculations to see that India and China are both going to be there, what they wanted to be at one time, sufficient space for both of them to grow within Asia and within the world. Now, I think once again we are perhaps going into the same position. Jaishankar has given that signal, Xi Jinping has given that signal. Now it's for the other countries to see. Above everything else, secondly, I must also tell you that Chinese and Turkey, they supplied all kinds of weaponry and
To
manpower to
Pakistan.
Pakistan. And India was able to give adequate response, more than adequate response to all of them. And as Vice President Adib would say, no, that at least 15, 20 countries are now requesting India to share its offensive and defensive systems, armaments, etc. with them. Maldives may or may not like it, that's a different matter. But there are so many countries which have seen the performance of the Indian origin, Indian made weapons, both for defense and for offense. And they have been able to take care of what was produced by China, what was being used by the NATO countries like Turkey, and by Pakistan, which was trying to get the best of the whole world, and also had the old weaponry from UK and USA, which they were trying to use, F-16s and all that kind of thing. So, therefore, we have now reached a new stage where China has realized that it's losing its defense market. India has got a lot of new credibility, and they feel that India-China relationship must improve. Otherwise, Chinese will find themselves totally isolated in one way when the Americans really hit them hard.
That's interesting. China does not want to find itself isolated. And you're right, sir. Trump tariffs seem to have really changed the world as we knew it. The international order really seems to have undergone, a metamorphosis in some ways. And maybe it was a direct outcome of the threat of Trump tariffs that you actually saw China recently saying that India and China need to work closer together. And of course, then we saw Minister Jaishankar visiting Beijing and meeting the Chinese president. Let me now go back to Vice President Adib at this point. Vice President Adib, you referred to tourism earlier and how it's such an important part of the Maldivian economy. Would you say that after the backlash that we saw in India, especially on the social media, against the insulting remarks made by some of Maldivian ministers against Prime Minister Modi, was there a significant drop in the inflow of tourists from India into the Maldives? Would you say that that is something that has hurt, the Maldives tourism department, its economy, and do you believe that is now likely to change with Prime Minister Modi's visit to the country?
Yes, indeed. If you see during the COVID times, India and with Prime Minister Modi's initiative, they created a air bubble between Maldives and India, where Maldivians can go there and Indians can come to Maldives. So that's where Indian tourists became number one even after the COVID, and we were maintaining that for a couple of years until this incident last year. After that, we seen a drop in Indian market. Now it's in the position of sixth from first to sixth. So there has been a significant drop, and I would say with this relationship again regaining the momentum, and with the Prime Minister Modi visiting Maldives, uh, I would say it will change and it will have an impact. And I would say this is the time for Maldives to start promoting more in India, as well as trying to find more flight connections, because we are opening our new terminal as well, so we have more capacity. So I believe this is the time to boost the tourism and development, I would say.
Okay. Ambassador Shashank, let me come back to you. While, of course, tourism is a big contributor to the Maldivian economy, and India has contributed to it in a big way over the years. But according to you, what is the biggest message that Prime Minister Modi's visit to the Maldives sends out to the world at large, and let's say to China in particular?
I think Prime Minister Modi has said very clearly that we have taken note of what China was trying to do in our neighborhood, and we want to convince these countries that we are their reliable long-term partners and the first country of coming to any help or any kind of assistance whenever there is any difficulty in these countries or in their neighborhood. I think that is what we have done. I remember in 2004 when there was tsunami in Southeast Asia, India became the first country to help all these countries uh, for the during the tsunami, and all of them, Indonesia, Thailand, Sri Lanka, all of them were so grateful that India was able to do that immediately without worrying about the costs or without worrying about what could be the other repercussions. And I remember even earlier, I had gone for an African Union summit to Durban, and suddenly there was huge amount of waves going on in the seas, and they were all worried as to what will happen. Indian naval ships reached immediately. They were the first ones to reach there, and the South African leadership told us that we were so amazed, and that other countries which were there, big countries, they were not able to reach there, but Indians were able to reach there very fast. So I think this is the message which Prime Minister Modi is conveying, that while we were silently building up our capacities on defense matters, but we have now been able to reach, our scientists, technicians, and others have been able to reach a stage where, with full commitment and with the basic idea that we treat the whole world as a family and we want to work with them. I think there are other opinions, definitely other. We don't say that this is the only world perspective, but this is an Indian perspective, and I think Prime Minister Modi very much wants to carry that out and convince other countries that India is really doing that very sincerely. And for example, when he's being asked about the environment, climate change, and all these things, and Western narratives are inflicted on him, he said, "No, but I have been doing that. Indians have been doing that all along. I mean, we have been treating nature as part of our own upbringing, and so there is no question. I mean, whether using uh, the climate, whether using the environment, whether using the nature, trees, rivers, seas, they're all part of our own upbringing, and we have to do all that. So I think at least our neighbors should be able to feel that much better. Then we can convince other countries which are in a distance that yes, we can carry forward a message coming from South Asia and from the maritime partners in this region.
Well, you're quite right, sir, in pointing out those various examples, whether it was during the tsunami of 2004, during COVID times, or more recently during times of economic distress for the Maldives, that India has steadfastly stood by its allies, by its friends, by its neighbors, and by the world at large. This is not an expansionist country. This is not a hegemonic country. It's something that's been acknowledged by Vice President Adib as well. It's the largest democracy in the world that can be trusted to be a reliable partner. On that note, I'd like to thank Vice President Ahmed Adib and Ambassador Shashank for joining me on Global Pulse tonight. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Thank you for having us. Thank you, Mr.
Well, clearly this is a very important visit by Prime Minister Modi to the Maldives, one that has signaled an important reset in India-Maldives ties. Let's certainly hope that this important bilateral relationship goes from strength to strength and that no country, including China, is allowed to dictate terms, especially to the Maldives vis-a-vis its foreign policy. Well, that's all the time we have on the show tonight. Thanks so much for watching. This is me, Neha Khanna, signing off. Have a great weekend ahead.